The things that you want to focus on are the things that are hardest to manipulate. You get that there anytime you can get feedback directly from users, that's like the ultimate goal, because it gives you so much data that any tool online will not tell you.
Right, as opposed to showing you 100 options, you've just found this one.
So, yeah. So if two sites are very similar in their content, in their other factors that go into it, Google's going to say, okay, which one does the user like?
Today's guest is my friend Bill, founder of Emulent, which is a marketing agency, a creative marketing agency, and specializing in website optimization. So you cover a lot of things, like you cover the range of a lot of things. And I want our conversation today to focus more around SEO, right? And I think where I would like to start, and of course you can fill in any gaps about what you're doing with your agency if you want to, or your background, you can feel free to do that. But the first thing I'm going to ask you is on a lot of people's minds, which is like how literal to name things. So by that I mean, I think a lot of people are trying to capitalize on local SEO, and maybe we can even get into that. There's like local SEO, there's like, over the nation, right?
Yeah, national.
Yeah. But like when I think about local or even like, area, East Coast, West Coast, whatever, I'm seeing a lot of like such and such shirt company, or one of my favorites that I think is a meme is like, I saw this Thai restaurant name themselves Thai Near You.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So they're like every time they type in Google Thai Near Me for their area, it literally is the name of the thing. So what I want to know from you and your experience is that a good idea? Can it potentially be harmful, or do you need it? You know what I'm saying?
Right. So back 15 years or so, from an SEO standpoint, people would go out and they would buy what they call exact match domains. So these are domains that
are the literal name,
are the exact keyword you're trying to rank for. Google came out with an update that combated that some, because they were giving too much prominence to the domain name and not enough to the actual content or the experience for the site. So is it good? There's a few things when we're thinking about naming a business or getting a URL. The first is, can I brand it? Can I utilize this URL or this business name in a way that doesn't allow others to outrank it? So that's one of the mistakes I made with my other company. Was the domain I bought had what I call a modifier. So it was something SEO. And so what that did was, that was great if clients or searchers search for SEO. It wasn't great because a few years later, someone bought linchpin.com, which was the name. And so they were ranking above me for the word linchpin.
Just the word itself, without SEO attached.
Without SEO attached. So the problem there was, when my clients would call me linchpin or my company linchpin, they would outrank me. And so I was basically sending them traffic.
Wow. Okay.
So we got to think about that.
So that's like a brand recognition kind of thing.
Yes. So when we talk about adding a modifier like SEO, like t-shirt, like couch, whatever you want to add, you have to make sure you also get the primary domain name.
Okay. And well, are you suggesting now, obviously, so in this specific case, we're talking about, website, Google My Business, all that kind of stuff. So you're suggesting that a good idea, if you have the cash flow, is to buy the main domain if you can get it, but then also this kind of subsequent domain that you could potentially rank for, and then send the traffic to that. So in your case, let's say you had bought linchpin.com, but then you also have linchpin SEO. Anybody that types that in actually gets directed to what you want them to see.
Correct.
So in a sense, it's kind of like a both and. But in your story, it actually ended up hurting you a little bit to have blah 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 SEO, or if someone was thinking about branding co or whatever, so you have to think, like, let's just say a name that I came up with, like, my last name's Wilson. So let's say Wilson Branding Co. Or is that like, obviously I can't get the domain for Wilson, but let's just say in this scenario I could. Just Wilson.com would probably be stronger in the long run for Wilson Brand. Maybe? Or what do you...
Yeah, I think in the long run it would, simply because you can then brand that as whatever you want. If you decide to... So that's the other
if I
part
wanted
of
to pivot.
Exactly. If you wanted to say, hey, I offer chairs, so wilsonchairs.com, but now I'm suddenly offering upholstery cleaning or tables or something like that.
You can't grow.
Challenge, right? The challenge is now you're quote known for chairs, which is what happened to me. I was known for SEO, even though we did design and
other things. Okay.
Everything basically within a digital strategy, we were pigeonholed into that SEO, and so we would see our clients going elsewhere if they needed a new design because they just thought of us as SEO. So that's the other kind of challenge with that. If we're talking about pure SEO value. There is some value to getting WilsonT-shirts.com.
Sure.
Typically that comes with when someone links to it or someone mentions you, they're most likely going to use Wilson T-shirts. And therefore you have the modifier of T-shirts, and therefore it's easier.
Oh, to get to what they want. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And
it's less vague.
Exactly. Because if I just say, hey, I own Wilson.com, you're going to be like, I have no idea what you do.
Oh, true.
But if you said, hey, Wilson T-shirts, then I have some idea.
You don't have the brand recognition of like Nike. And even in their case, they're not Nike Sport Co.
Exactly.
Maybe they are on paper. I have no idea what their LLC actually is. But like the domain, for example, in the SEO realm is just Nike.
Right.
And then anything else they do around that is just attributed to big Nike brand.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So if you have a lot of money to spend to brand yourself, go for it. But that's a challenge. If we're talking about local SEO, that's a little different. So we see a lot of, and I'm sure you've seen billboards on the highway for personal injury lawyer in something, Raleigh.com or RaleighPersonalInjury.com. That is, that can have some local value. Not a ton, but it can have some local value. And it's also, like we talked about, it's very much a branding. Like, what do you do? That's what you do. A lot of car dealerships will do it as well, where they'll buy like ToyotaCars.com or ToyotaCarsRaleigh.com. It can have some value. It's still, you still have to build value to it. You can't just put it up, and in the majority of cases, unless it's really long tail and a long URL, and a very low competitive keyword, you can't just put it up and it'll automatically rank. You still have to build some value to it with links, social, all the things that traditional SEO is about. And then you have to, again, then we add on top of that the local SEO factors. Okay. So you've got your domain, you've got your website built. In order to get into the maps, you need to have a physical location that someone can come to, be greeted at.
Or at least suggest that you do, right? Or are you talking, or
no,
is this solely for what would be a physical location?
So you need to have, if you're looking at saying, hey, I want to rank for furniture store in Raleigh, you need to have a furniture store in Raleigh to get into the maps.
Okay.
You have to have a physical location. That's one of the requirements of Google. Have a physical location. So in a co-working space, that's in that gray area. Google's got a little more lenient since.
Oh, so for example, because you have a marketing agency, so would yours? Do we attribute that because we're in a co-working space? For all of you that don't know, we work in the same co-working space. Right now, we're in the Kittl office. You have an office, 20 feet away. But like what you're saying, you could potentially have a location for your marketing agency, but it's just this location?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, you need to, Google's getting more and more strict on this.
Okay, I didn't realize this.
Yeah, so.
Because I have a branding thing, like a side thing, and I show up, if you type in something like vintage branding design Raleigh, and I have a little GMB, but it just says serving Raleigh, Durham, Triangle. There's no like physical it looks like it, but there's not.
You can block the physical location
or hide it or something.
Hide it, yeah.
Maybe that's what I did.
That's possible. I don't know. But yeah, addresses they used to just send out a postcard and you'd get.
That's what I got.
Yeah.
So I validated, I verified. Yeah.
Yes. They're getting much stricter, especially in some industries, home services side of things. They're very strict. But to validate or verify my business here, I had to shoot a video. I had to say, hey, this is my office. I have a specific office.
Send it to who?
Send it to Google to get verified.
Really?
So yeah, they're starting to do that to be more and more, because everything is not everything, but a lot of things are moving towards local. And so they want to make sure that you're not just buying a mailbox and
Like a P.O. box?
Yeah,
you
P.O.
can't
box.
do that.
Can't do a P.O. box.
I tried.
Nope.
It didn't work.
Can't do a P.O. box. They used to, a lot of companies used to do like Regis, which is it's like an old version of like a co-working space. They have offices. Google started to realize, hey,
It's like whitelisting a space.
yes,
Kind of.
yeah. It's ideally, like, if we look at the overall experience of a business, making sure you have some place that if someone walked in, they could talk to somebody and at least get directed to you. That's the key. And a lot of them are like the small businesses that are like a pet shop or something, a pet store. They all have physical locations. So that doesn't really, they don't have to play in that space or worry about that.
Yeah.
But service-based industries sometimes do, because they don't need an office. If their clients are all over the U.S., they don't technically need an office.
Right.
However, most of them want to rank locally. And in order to do that, you need a local space that someone can come to.
Got it. Yeah.
So
So I want to start to differentiate a little bit and bridge it to the audience I think is watching for our channel. That would be most helpful. Obviously, something like a marketing or a branding thing would be, but the nuance here between something like local or national, because I think that you could hire an agency, states or even continents away to do something. So I want to know a little bit more about that. Like, I have a friend that, well, I have several friends, but I have a friend that owns an agency in, California and in London, and, they do branding work for clients all over the place. Now, yes, they do have a physical location. So I'm trying to, just for everybody, I'm trying to paint the picture of what you all as users, designers, creatives might be building. Something very similar actually to what you've done. You've done a marketing agency. You do kind of full service type thing. You can do a design, or you can go in and optimize. You obviously have specialty in SEO. My friend's agency that I'm talking about, they also offer SEO. Mm-hmm. They brand themselves as a branding agency, but they do offer writing as a thing. Now, they have an office in like a co-working kind of thing. And they're not really ever pitching, hey, like, come to the office, because it's a small team like yours. You have a small team. Exactly. So what are the practical steps that we would help somebody that wants to, maybe they're on Fiverr or something, okay, and they're offering services. They want to get off of that. They're trying to build their website. Maybe they're kind of on Google My Business, but maybe they're having a little bit of issue with the validation thing because they don't have a physical location. They don't want to put their house up on Google. That's not okay for somebody to show up at your house. What are the steps we can give them to take if they just want to start ranking for the services themselves? And I know you're probably going to talk a little bit about long tail and negative and these kind of catchwords that go with SEO that maybe people just aren't familiar with, and they just don't know, like, what am I even supposed to write? And then beyond that, what am I supposed to be doing on the back end? Because almost every web provider has some sort of back end that says SEO or keywords or whatever, and you have we were talking the other day about how Google Analytics is frustrating. Right, exactly. So it's like, how do we help these people start to get seen? Like, what are the steps?
Yeah, so trying to get, if you can't get a Google business profile, you can't get in the maps. The big thing is the creation of content. Okay. So making sure you're creating content, whether it's videos or blog posts or whatever you want to.
Even like Pinterest curation, because I know a lot of impressions for designy stuff come from Pinterest to the thing that you offer.
Right. So anywhere you can get, and that gets into kind of the image optimization side of things.
Oh, okay, right.
So yeah, any piece of content you can create, and that can be anything. It can be, like I said, video, blog post, image.
Blog, because that's a lot of words.
Anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So Google, in theory, will grab the words, index them, run it through their algorithm, and show it.
Try
if
to serve
makes
it.
value.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you can't get in the maps because you don't have a location, there are other ways to get on the first page. For some keywords, you can get 1, 2, 3 spot.
Well, you can certainly pay for it.
You could pay for it. You could pay for it. You could buy paid search. And if it's a long tail keyword or if it's a mid tail, which mid tail is, say, it's 2 to 3 words.
Okay. And can you give an example of a long tail versus a mid tail phrase or something?
So if we talk about web design, web design is a head term. It's a very short, very to the point.
Would be difficult to rank for, right?
It'd be very difficult, and you don't know what the user is looking for specifically. They may be
I
looking
didn't even think
for
about
web design. They may be looking for
An app?
a web design app. They may be looking for, it can be anything.
Dang, yeah, I didn't even. I thought I did. I
How
used
do
to
you
do web
design
design,
a
obviously.
spider web? It could be anything.
How to draw a spider? Yeah,
Exactly.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
So you have to think about the intent of the user. That's the biggest thing that Google has moved towards is the intent of the user. So
Interesting.
that would be a very high level. You can try to rank for that. It's probably going to take a while, like years, to get you to that point, if you could even get there.
Yeah, you'd have to have crazy reviews and
There'd be a ton of things that you would have to do.
backlinks and
Yes,
that's a whole
yeah,
nother thing,
and
yeah.
it's a whole. It's
Okay, so is that a long tail? Or?
that's a short tail.
That's
so
a short
that's
tail,
what I call
sorry.
like a head term.
A head term. Got
Head
it.
term.
Okay.
So that's like 2 words. Mid would be like web design Raleigh or Raleigh web design.
So like a location.
A location plus
Qualifier.
your service.
Okay, understood.
And then a longer tail would be
web design
web des-
for something.
yes.
something.
I need like web design for Etsy stores or something like that, or
something.
something
Web-
that's
Shopify.
longer. Yes,
Like
web design
some
for
qualifier.
Shopify.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So you need a longer. Those are less searched. However, they are typically higher converting because the intent of the
niche.
user, yes, they're very specific. We know that when someone searches for that, there's a very high probability that they're searching for a specific thing compared to web design or even web design Raleigh. That's a little closer, but it's still a little, can be vague. You never know.
And for everybody, we're in Raleigh, but insert your own town or whatever.
Exactly.
It would be the same thing, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Web design Austin.
Exactly.
No chance getting ranked for that right now.
There's a lot of, as you get into the bigger cities, Chicago, New York, it becomes more difficult to rank for those cities. So the other thing is looking at what your potential clients, the challenges they have. So, hey, I have a hard time as a business, say I have a hard time finding a T-shirt vendor that is local that I can then go to and try on shirts.
Okay.
So you say, okay, that is something that I'm having problem doing. How can we create a piece of content that targets that mindset or that challenge of your end user in a way that not only answers their question, but directs them towards you?
Okay.
And so that would be a way to rank for local terms with higher intent.
Yeah, because that's more niche than the long
Right. That is super. Yeah. Like I need a t-shirt company in Raleigh that I can go in and try a shirt on.
Wow. Yeah. Very specific.
Very specific. However, if you have that, you're going to get that, and you can start to use that in your messaging.
Usually. Yeah.
Very, very specific, and you're going to get much higher conversion.
So I think another thing that Google has definitely cracked down on, and rightfully so, is back in the day. So let's just assume that someone has heard this now, and they're like, "Oh, great." I'm not saying any of you watching are going to do this, but let's just say they got the idea. Oh, great. I'm going to go on my website and on a few of my landing pages and the blogs, I'm just going to make sure I write those words 80 times and like maybe some of them I'll turn white so that they are hidden.
Right.
And so like this doesn't work anymore. Just saying like, okay, my long tail phrase is web design for painters, Raleigh, and then you just put that in every paragraph.
Right.
And it's like, so that doesn't work. So to everybody, by the way, that's not, just because you duplicate it more times doesn't tell Google that you're any more valuable.
Right.
So then why doesn't that work anymore?
Okay.
And what do we do instead? How do we get more creative with words? I think that's another problem. I think it's just like, and then we're going to talk about AI in a little bit, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, back, and this was a while ago, there was this theory about keyword density. It's so
Density.
you
Okay, I was
had
looking for the word.
100 words on your page, and you mentioned your specific keyword 50 times. Therefore, you had a 50% keyword density. It's BS. Like it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work.
And so by looking at that, the other thing is the experience. So if a user lands on your page and the content is every 3 words is your exact, it's just a poor experience. And Google looks at that and says, that's just a bad experience. And ultimately, our search results as Google is our product.
Yeah.
And therefore, if we're defining and putting in content that is bad and doesn't provide a good experience, it reflects badly on us.
Dang.
So that's how you can look at it. If you're going to get into Google, you have to provide value. And so when we look at keywords, is there a density? Because there's not. But yes, you need to have your keywords on the page. Think of, instead of density, think of diversity.
Yeah, that's probably the struggle. Because, and you know, I mentioned to you yesterday, we can get into some, practical, helpful things. Not everybody, and I understand. I mean, you don't know this. I forgot to tell you. Like my actually first kind of big agency job was SEO. I was an SEO writer. Just a writer for like pages and blogs and clients. Right. I would go in and handle blogs or marketing campaign language, stuff like that. And we'd have briefs, and we would use the full suite of stuff. I mean, we had SEMrush, we had what's the other really big one?
There was SEO Moz.
We had Moz. We had, there was like 5. I couldn't tell you anymore. I like SEMrush the best, I think, just because I could filter things the way I wanted.
Yes.
But that was with the backing power of agency money, and not everyone, unless they're just a serial entrepreneur, has the money to go and grab the business or pro level of these tools. So with diversity, the thing you just said, these tools kind of help me with that, right? Because I can give it a location, I can give it the tail keywords, and it'll kind of generate a list. If you don't have immediate access to that, how do I get diverse with my keywords?
So there's a few ways. The ways that I like using, if you can't do SEMrush or SEMrush, I still don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know if it's SEMrush or SEMrush. However, if you can't get that, you can also use Google's free keyword planner tool.
Oh, that's right, they do have one.
With paid search, and that's a pretty good tool. The two that I like that are kind of what I would consider outside of the box are looking at if you have customer service, sometimes they'll record the calls and they'll provide the transcript. Look at what your users are saying. How are they talking about?
How are they describing you?
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
So look at anything that you can grab. If you have a sales team, if it's just you that are taking the calls.
Or even if you're doing like a discovery call, write down what they're saying.
Exactly. What questions do they have? How are they? And then take that just make a basic word cloud out of it and say, hey, this word I'm hearing a ton. That's really good. Do I have any content that satisfies a user intent for that?
And you would think, are other users saying this thing?
Exactly.
20 people have said this phrase.
Exactly.
I have to, I'll give you an example and you tell me if this is accurate. So I was working with a client, and they do construction, and they do, kind of high-end veneer luxury stuff in the home, molding and fireplace remodeling, really high-end stuff. And one of their struggles, I was really just doing branding and logo design, and I did that kind of whole thing, and it was taken care of. But what they really wanted was to update and optimize their website, which was 1 million years old. So I have friends that I shifted that onto them. But what I helped them with was they were like, we have this terminology that is what it is, and it's not. People don't know that it's called veneer crowned. What is the? I don't even remember the word now. It's a word that's so specific, smackle, whatever. It's just whatever the technical thing is.
Yep.
But they were like, I wonder if people are just typing in, fancy trim, or whatever word that they have. And so what we did was this exercise where with them on the call, we just it was just a Google Doc, and we did high, medium, and low, and we were like, low, meaning what we could rank for, was like what it actually is. So the definition of the thing. And then we would go to medium. It's like, okay, well, how would like kind of a professional say this, but like in passing, how would you pitch this to somebody? We would write those down there. And then we would say like, explain it to a 5-year-old. Mm-hmm. What do you do?
Exactly.
Just list is that kind of like similar?
Yes, it's very similar. When I do keyword research, usually it's like a month-long project with multiple meetings with the client, revising the keywords, et cetera.
And you're going in and you're using kind of tools to validate your findings.
Yes, I'm validating findings, but I'm also going through and listening to the client on what they have, what they want, which is for anyone who has like an e-commerce store or whatever, it's the end user. So looking at reviews of yours or other businesses that are and what are they saying?
Oh, interesting. Didn't think about that.
Yep. Anywhere you can basically mine the data and get the data from or get the words from is important. But it is very difficult, especially for businesses that offer something that is unique, that they're trying to build a market around, which I've come up against multiple times. It's very difficult to rank for something. Let me rephrase that. It's very difficult to drive traffic or get traffic for something that nobody knows anything about. Sure. So in that case, what we do is we typically look at the challenges that the user has, and where does the product fit into the challenge. So if the challenge is my ceiling is, I have popcorn ceilings, and I want nice new ceilings, smooth ceilings. Yeah. So it might be, hey, we write a blog about how to remove popcorn ceilings, a DIY guide or something like that.
Oh, okay,
or can you remove popcorn ceilings with a blowtorch or whatever it is?
Yeah, it's like a vacuum with a little scalpel thing
Exactly.
on it. Yeah.
All these things that the end user has questions about is what we have to focus on, because that ultimately you're selling a product that's supposed to solve a problem. And so when you're selling that, you have to make sure that you're satisfying the problem that the user has. And the only way to do that is to create content or educate the user on what it is and what it does and why it's better and all that. But that's a big thing. So usually we focus on the challenges. It's basically an inverted pyramid. Where
you're saying reverse engineer kind of.
Exactly. You could do it with the search results too. That's another place to get. So you can just type in, hey, I want to rank for web design Raleigh. Great. Type it into the search results. Go to every page on that or every link on that first page.
Okay.
Grab all the keywords from that.
Oh, wow.
Put it in a document.
Okay.
Do a word cloud. What is being said? How are they structuring the pages? What are they adding to their pages? And then do something similar and then add some extra value to it. So if they all have a great portfolio page that's ranking for web design in Raleigh, you could do a portfolio page, but also do video testimonials on it and do all these things that will help the user make a decision. Okay. Because ultimately that's the other part of this is the user metrics. Okay. Which Google definitely
is that like visits? Or
visits, dwell time, the time on the page. Yeah,
sessions and bounce rate.
Click-throughs, bounce rate, all these things that Google denied for, forever. That SEOs and digital agencies were like, it's got to be, because it's their product. It makes sense for them to use user metrics to adjust rankings based on
based on performance. Yeah.
So if two sites are very similar in their content, in their other factors that go into it, Google's going to say, okay, which one does the user like? Which one do they go to? Which one do they stay on? Do they go to one and then leave and go to the next one?
Go to the next one. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So they they call it nav boost is what the algorithm
Really?
version. Yeah, it's it's navigation boost. It's like what the user did, how they navigated. And so that's why going back to when we talked about keyword placement and putting keywords in, making sure you have a good experience is vital for not only attracting the user, but retaining
Keeping
the user.
them there.
And that is a signal to Google that's like, wow, for this keyword, web design Raleigh, the user's landing on this page and they're loving it. They're staying there, they're watching the videos, they're scrolling,
It has everything they need.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's doing what it's supposed to, and therefore, even though the site above it has more links, is more valuable, from a traditional SEO standpoint, when we look at the user metrics, the users actually prefer this page. If we're a local business, we add another layer to that, in that Google can and does use traffic data, driving directions.
Okay.
So if you're a local business,
really?
If you're a local business in Raleigh, how many times does a user come to your business? Type the address into Google Maps, and come to your business. And how long do they stay there? Do they just drive by? Do they stop? Are they there for 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is? Those are also indicators that you're a really good business, or you should be ranked for that keyword.
So what do you mean by saying Google is attaching the amount of times someone types in the address and goes there to your performance, therefore how high you're going to rank on the page?
It's partially, yeah. That's one of their.
That's kind of scary.
400 data points they look at.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So you can. So I did a blog post about the things that you want to focus on are the things that are hardest to manipulate.
Say that one more time.
The things you want to focus on for local SEO.
Yes.
Are the things that would be the most difficult to manipulate as a business.
To copy.
Driving to the location. Are you really going to? You could pay somebody, I guess, but they're going to know that, hey, it's the same person going to the thing. How can we get hundreds of people to do this? Is very difficult to do. Reviews. Yes, you can slightly manipulate that. You can buy reviews. Google's good at kind of
finding
breaking
it
that
now.
out,
Yeah,
finding
for sure.
it. So there are things that are more difficult for a business to manipulate, to fake. Those are the things that you should focus on, because I think ultimately Google, that's what they're going to look at and say, wait a second, yes, they have a ton of links, but they can buy those. They can do sponsorships. They can do all these things locally. Yeah, they have great content. They could have had someone write that. There's a lot of things you have to have, but they're not necessarily the largest part of the puzzle.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, there's like this joke that when you talk to SEOs, they say, well, it depends. It does depend. There's a lot of things that it
There's
depends
some
on.
variables here.
Yes,
Yeah.
there are a lot of variables. It's not, hey, create a great website, create content, and get a Google business profile page, and all of a sudden you're there.
Yeah.
Now, does it happen? Yes.
Yeah.
And those are the edge cases, and the problem with those edge cases is that people look at that and say, wait a second, they're doing it. They have no links, no content. They have one page on their site.
What's
They're
happening?
ranking.
What's
How are they
happening?
doing that?
Yeah.
And so looking at the edge cases is fine, but those edge cases are eventually going to be chopped.
So e-commerce.
Yes.
There's a difference here, obviously, in not only service to product, but then also location to online. So now we've removed a couple of potential things that you could do. Now you can have as an e-commerce site, you can have a physical location. Let's say you have a boutique or something. Okay, so there's another variable that you could have, but that's not who you're trying to serve. E-commerce, you're trying to serve a wider
National
range
or international sometimes.
And what I know, I think we do have a lot of users that are, they're creating shops for merchandise that they've gone to Kittl, they've used to make designs for whatever kind of thing. Maybe they're doing custom products and they're using Kittl to design and printing themselves, or maybe they're doing print on demand, or maybe they have a Shopify or something like that. So whatever. It's e-commerce. Let's just say it's anything. I know that one struggle for many of our users is writing product descriptions, that's a struggle, because how do you factor in SEO without sounding stupid, right? You're not going to make this cool, awesome looking merchandise sound robotic and plain with an SEO description from ChatGPT, which I know we'll get into AI after this, but like, where do you see the differentiators for e-commerce? And let's try to not, I try, because everybody, I don't know where they are in the beginning stages to building. Like, I try not to throw money at it. That's an easy, like, throw money at it.
Right. You can, yeah.
Yeah, but how do you go about building an e-commerce specific site for ranking? I would say a lot of things are the same. However, you're trying to, like, we can have an e-commerce here, but we want California or Canada people to or whatever. So what do you suggest there?
So with e-commerce, again, the experience is a big thing. For the product pages, look at some other sites that are in your industry, some bigger players. So you're selling jewelry.
Okay.
Go to the Jared's, go to the whatever big jewelers are out there.
Okay.
Look at their product pages and see what they include on them. Most likely
like
there's going to be,
details?
there's going to be reviews, there's going to be videos, there's going to be description. And then take that information and say, okay, here's all that information. There's 5 or 6 different things that the majority of them have on it. There's some that they don't have on it that we may need to, or we may be able to add value by putting on.
Differentiate.
Exactly. Look at that and say, okay, how can I structure this page in a way that tells a story for the product?
Okay.
So,
that's good.
So it's going to be title of the product, what it is. It's a blue jade necklace. That's going to be the title of the product. You're going to have maybe like a review system, 5-star reviews, or 100 people like it, however you want to define it. Then you're going to have your description. So your description is going to involve keywords, as well as more human-driven language. Okay. So you've got, like, you're going to say, hey, this is a beautiful jade necklace that would be great for any husband to buy their wife or a girlfriend to have, whatever it is. You're going to be very emotional with that description.
Perfect gift for whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Underneath that, you're going to break out, because you'll also know that they want to know size, they want to know quality, they want to know what different
where it was made,
materials, where it was. So those are kind of icons that you're going to say, hey, it's 24-inch silver, jade was from here, this was this, and you're going to take 4 or 5 of the key points in the long description of it and put them there for easy consumption. Okay. So we want to make this page easily consumable by the user, so that they don't have to typically scroll down the page, click on view all product description, and it's a big long product description. You want to have the majority of the stuff on top.
Okay.
Definitely photos, lots of photos,
For sure.
videos.
For sure.
But the big thing is telling that story.
Yeah.
And telling it in a way that emotionally the person is like, this is a beautiful necklace, and they can see themselves giving it, wearing it, whatever.
Yeah, and the idea, I would think, is like it's more valuable coming from search actually to that specific product page versus like a home page with lots of products, right?
Exactly.
That would be the value of building the narrative on this product page, because I want to get you to that.
Exactly.
Right, as opposed to showing you 100 options, you've just found this one.
Exactly. That is a great point, because it speaks to the structure of a website and where we apply keywords. You wouldn't want to necessarily apply a keyword for a silver jade necklace to a homepage.
Right.
Unless that's all you do.
That's all you do.
All you do.
Yeah, you specialize in that.
Exactly.
Okay.
The homepage typically is, when we talked about the head terms, they're typically the head terms is where the homepage lies.
Yeah.
Silver necklaces or whatever. Maybe it's whatever you're selling. Silver jewelry.
Or like, silver jewelry for something occasion.
Exactly.
Like it's
yes.
all, yeah.
So then the next level would be like the category pages. And that would be like silver necklaces or silver jewelry necklaces. Or you can even do by occasion. So silver necklaces for Valentine's Day, for birthdays, for whatever. And you can build that out as well, that into your navigation.
And then probably types, right? So necklaces, bracelets, earrings.
Yes, exactly.
That would be like categories, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, you don't want to go crazy and do a ton.
Okay.
And that's where looking at analytics comes in and saying, okay, what are most people looking for? Okay,
Now, are you suggesting like it would be best to? Okay, so just so I'm following the train of thought, you're like maybe you do want to have necklaces and bracelets on the same page as opposed to like only necklaces, only whatever. I guess there's a difference between categories and filters.
Right. So categories would be anything in the drop-down menu, we'll call it.
Okay.
So you've got your home page or every page of your site. You have across the top, you've got your navigation.
Yep.
One is, let's take an example. You have necklaces, rings, and bracelets.
Okay.
That's what you have. That's all you do.
Yep.
Those three would be the primary top: necklaces, rings, and bracelets. The drop down of those would be maybe you have multiple materials, so silver, gold, platinum, whatever. Platinum rings, silver ring, gold rings.
Yep, got
when
it.
you get into those pages, that displays all of the products. So that would be like a category page.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So that would be that, and that's really for discoverability. It's for SEO. You have to have more to that page though than just the products.
Yeah.
Typically, it depends. But usually you have a description, you have the products, and then you have a buy now or something like that.
Yeah.
If they see it. When you click on one of those products, then that takes you to the product page. So
Okay.
that product page, like we mentioned, would be name, description, key points. Below that,
More narrative.
usually you do like reviews would be next. So social proof of the value. Any videos you might want to pull out of if you have them in like the image carousel type thing on your site. Typically they're like last. You might want to pull those out and put like
And embed
video
them in
reviews,
the actual.
put
Okay.
it right. Yep.
Okay. Got it.
And so, and those would be from customers. So we're talking about a big swatch of this is social proof for many
Interesting.
reasons.
Interesting.
One is going to be users are going to relate more to other people that are not part of the company, obviously, because you're trying to sell them something.
So UGC basically.
Exactly. And that, the UGC, the reviews, et cetera, they are written like people speak.
Oh, for
They're
sure.
not.
Because they're being honest.
Exactly. Yeah, this necklace is great because it hangs just below my collar and it's under my shirt and whatever
And
it
it
is.
fits with this kind of style
Exactly,
of clothing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing, like you just mentioned too. If we talk about use cases for a piece of jewelry.
Wow.
So a lot of people will say, "Hey, I have this great shirt and skirt, and what type of jewelry would go with a red skirt and a white shirt? I don't know." But you can do pages that
basically
look or
answer
whatever you
that
want.
question with
Exactly.
the- yeah, okay,
Exactly.
okay.
So, and you can, once you have that page, you can then say, okay, here's a bundle of items that model wore.
Goes with, yeah.
So bundling is a big thing too. So you can say, hey, you bought the necklace, here's the earrings and the bracelet that goes along with it. Buy all three and give a little discount.
Of course.
But that's an easy way to sell more,
Yeah.
increase revenue, et cetera, without really doing much more than making a recommendation.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking what I've seen a lot of, because again, we're kind of talking about e-commerce specifically now at a much more, at least a national level, maybe a global level. Jewelry is obviously a big industry. Any kind of clothing, which a lot of our users are into, is a big industry. But very similar to the advice you gave at the front end for more localized stuff applies here, because you're not going to just rank for silver jewelry.
Right.
So what I've been seeing a lot of is the kind of content, whether it's social proof, just websites, social media, whatever. There's always an intense specific qualifier on style, and not only style, but like manufacturing aesthetic. So let me give you an example. So I love this brand. It's called Clocks and Colors.
Okay.
And they make jewelry. but the way that they're doing it is like with super like rugged old kind of stuff, and it's all like, they really show the process, and it's very like vintagey.
Right.
It's very like old school biker kind of like, wear a fedora or a cowboy hat. Like that is the style, and it comes through in their product descriptions and also in their people's testimonials and things like that.
Right, exactly.
And so I'm just thinking like how much of, so you've got keywords and things like what the product is, okay, and then we talked about diversifying what you're going to do with that. How can you say it again? But then you also have to play the game of that for your style or niche.
Exactly.
Right, because you're trying to serve the audience nationally or globally that's looking for that style of thing. Like
Correct.
This jewelry, this ring, or this bracelet was hammered on an anvil for the rugged, does that make any sense?
That makes
Okay.
yeah, and that's so that's looking at the audience and saying, okay, what audience am I trying to
serving?
reach?
Okay.
And if I'm serving that audience, how do they speak? What are the words they use? And that goes back to like looking at customer service, looking at reviews, looking at things that you may not have thought of. There are so many new phrases typed into Google every day that it's a much bigger percentage than anyone. I can't remember the exact one, but it's a big percentage. And they're getting longer and longer tail. So they're getting much longer. So making sure that, you're talking like your users and your consumers or whoever you're going to target. And the messages need to align with that. The design needs to align with that.
Certainly what it looks like.
Exactly. Everything needs to align with that. Now, again, just like a URL with a modifier in it that we talked about earlier, if you start to say, hey, I want to target bikers, but now I want to also target stay-at-home moms, now you're like, wait a second.
Well, first of all, I'd ask you to step back and think about if that's a good idea. But yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd say, but that's a whole nother strategy in itself. So we want to make sure, like you said, you're speaking the language that your consumers or who you want to target is speaking.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to understand the user, understand your consumer.
More reverse engineering is needed.
Exactly. There's no way. So get a bunch of them. Say, hey, I'll send you. And we did this at an e-commerce site. We got a bunch of product that the e-commerce site was selling, and we created a special group and gave them discounts and things like that.
Oh, nice.
But we sent them the products. We said, hey, we have these 10 products. We're sending them out to our VIPs, we'll call it. It wasn't called that, but we'll call it VIPs. And which product do you want for free? You send it out 99 out of 100 times. It's posted on Instagram. It's posted everywhere.
You get a review.
Reviews are written about it. They tell their friends. I mean, there's so much for the $15 product. You've now gotten 15 different orders just off of that one.
That's good.
And that plays into that use case because they could say, hey, I got the product. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was. Maybe you should change the description slightly. And it's
Okay, so you get the feedback.
You get that. Anytime you can get feedback directly from users, that's like the ultimate goal because it gives you so much data that any tool online will not tell you.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to talk about is AI. And I saved maybe not the biggest, but I saved the intense one for last because I think a lot of, we're not talking necessarily about SEO specialists or writers because you would be one of them, but like, I guess product wise, just like whatever, like there's so much AI now. And this is why I asked you earlier about, speaking like a human versus a product description that definitely looks like it came out of ChatGPT with no orchestration. How do maybe you can explain how you utilize AI and how it can shine in SEO, because we were talking the other day and you said without any context, it's not going to give you what's right. It's going to give you what it thinks is right based on maybe your category or the brief thing that you said.
Right.
But if you don't check it or optimize it, then you might end up doing a lot of work that is not going to have an effect on your business. So how are you making the best use of AI? Because I feel like that's where a lot of people are going to go. Well, I use just ChatGPT for my, product descriptions. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I wonder how good it is actually,
Right.
So what do you think?
So when you remove this is like it's really a question of human versus robot, and that's like
Well,
when we think about it in a very basic thing, exactly. So when you're thinking about how users or how people speak, how I'm speaking now, how you're speaking now,
sure,
there's a cadence. There's
100%.
a specific way in which we say things.
Yeah.
The order of the words, we
Yeah.
could switch it up slightly, and people know what we're talking about.
Or we can stop and define.
Exactly.
Yeah.
AI doesn't do that. They have only what they've been trained on.
Okay.
Is the way they'll spit it back to you. The more specific you can be in the prompt you put into ChatGPT or into any of them, the less back-end work you're going to have to do.
Okay.
You're still going to have to edit it. You're still going to have to review it. You're still going to have to do things that...
Validate it.
Yes, that you normally would do if you wrote it.
Sure.
But you're going to have to make it more human.
Yeah.
Google is very good at determining
where it came from.
Cadence.
Yeah.
And say this word is always followed by this word, or this word ends this. There's always this in every page. This sentence structure is the same. It could say different things, but it's the same basic sentence structure. And when they see that, they can say, oh, we know that because it's on every page, either the same one person wrote this, or they used
ChatGPT.
They used a generative AI tool to write it. There has been, and I had met, when it first came out, I had many theories on how Google was going to test it.
Okay.
One of them was they would get with OpenAI or all the AI, and they would put a pixel that you wouldn't see. Say they put an extra pixel on every T, every letter T.
What's putting the pixel?
OpenAI. So you say, hey,
write
me
a ChatGPT?
Write me a product description for a silver jade necklace. It writes the product description. There's a T in that somewhere. This product is this. On that T, you wouldn't see it, but one pixel has an extra pixel on the top part of the T.
Sure.
That you wouldn't see.
Sure.
But as soon as Google sees that, because they know that shouldn't be there, they can look at that and say that's ChatGPT.
Are you serious?
That was a theory. There was some, and I know.
So, like, if you copied it from ChatGPT and you pasted it over without taking it and rewriting it or something.
It's possible that there could be something in there. There is in Grok, and I've seen it now in ChatGPT, where there is it's data start and data end. They put inside of the user wouldn't see it. I wouldn't see it if you just copied and pasted it into the thing. But if you look at the code, the HTML code, the paragraph tags all have this data start. It's got a number, and data end, they've got a number.
You actually can see that if you paste it with a special view. I noticed I pasted it into a Google Doc, and I was like, "What is all of this mess here?"
Exactly. What you can do is, I always, when I'm asking it to do something and output content, I always ask for it in HTML format.
Do you really?
Always, because it eliminates all that stuff. You don't have to go through and wonder, hey, did it put any different styles in there? Did it put something in there that I can't see that I'm going to have
to try that?
Yeah, always do it. Say it's usually like export or output it in HTML with no opening or closing body tags and no header area, because it'll output it like a web page if you don't do that, and that gives you just the HTML. And so you just copy paste that into the HTML version of the text version. If you're using WordPress or something like that, you can go in the text version, paste it in there, and then go back to the visual part, and it'll all be there.
Wow.
But that's what I've used it, been using it for, and doing a lot of testing with it, with SEO, and it's an interesting, it's like the early days of SEO.
Wow.
Very early days, to where you can do things to get ranked inside of Google's AI or get mentioned in ChatGPT more often, which then if people are using that, they're taking it and putting it on their site, and therefore now you've got a link back to your site. e-commerce is in t-shirts and all, top 10 t-shirt brands or the top 10 this. There's a lot of ways to, quote, manipulate that because it's in its early infant stages to where you can get on that list as a very small business.
And it serves you.
It'll say, hey, someone say, hey, I need a new t-shirt. What's the top brands for X, Y, and Z? ChatGPT is like, they'll give you a little summary and then it'll list those out. You can get on those lists.
You can, yeah. Wow.
There's ways to fudge it a little bit. Now, as it gets more mature, it will start to recognize those and say, wait a second, just because you did this does not mean you get on. So it is very much like the early stages of SEO where people would come up with theories. They would do it like pasting the keyword all the way, just keyword, put it in white, no one sees it.
Oh, yeah.
That was big back in before Google.
Oh, I know, yeah.
With Lycos and I think Yahoo. There was some old search engines
crazy time
where people
period.
would go in and they would they want to rank for car, and so they put car.
Yeah, they just turn it white.
Times.
Yeah,
they hit publish. A couple days, they go back and search Lycos or whatever the search engine they used. If they didn't rank, they go back in the page, type it 10 more times, and it's just obviously that's a horrible experience 100%. From a user standpoint.
Yeah.
Even if it's white and they can't see it, it's still a horrible experience because screen readers can.
Yeah.
And so now you've got all these random stuff in there and all this. It's just a bad experience. So AI, I think it's still very infantile. And so there are ways to manipulate it slightly.
Yeah.
Which is good and bad. People have to know that are using it that it's not necessarily giving you the best answer or the right answer.
Yeah.
It's giving you the answer that it was trained on.
Right.
To give you.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when we're talking about writing with it, writing product descriptions, writing anything with it, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So be very specific. Write, hey, I own this brand. Go to my website, look at what I have. Here's a description of what I'm selling, exact description as far as like who I want to target.
Yeah.
And give it as much information at the end of everything, every statement that you make or every prompt. So you say, hey, I'm about to ask you to write an article about X, Y, and Z, or write a product description. Here's what I do. I have a jewelry business that targets bikers, and it's very rugged and all. Is there anything else you want to know about me, about my business?
Wow.
And it'll go through and it'll say, wait, okay, are you looking to target a specific area? Is there a specific type? Do you target Harley Davidson?
It'll give you like a framework.
It'll
to
ask
fill
you all
in.
these things. You then answer those questions. It'll learn that.
That's good.
Then you say at the end of that, is there anything else? And if they don't have any other questions, they'll say, nope, that was all I need to know. Thanks. Let me know when you're ready to start writing the description.
Yeah.
You go and you write the description. You say, yep, I'm ready. Write it for this product.
That's good. Yeah.
You can go to that page if you don't have, or if you're rewriting descriptions. Go to this page. Here's the product, and write it. And then you export it in HTML. Export it, read it, add the flair to it or the personalization.
What you need to do,
where it
yeah.
matters.
Yeah.
You have to do that anyway. And then you should be in good shape.
Wow.
It's
great tip.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuances to it. Like I said, because it's new, it doesn't know. It's like a baby, like an infant, a toddler. Like you can say, hey, go wash your hands.
It's just repeating. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And they probably don't know how to do that. They're like, I don't know what you're telling me.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have to say, okay, go wash your hands. And you have to take them in, and this is how we wash our hands. And this is you do this and that and all these other things. And eventually they learn. And then they'll know when you say go wash your hands, or when you say, hey, create me a product description, they'll know.
Oh, I know how to do this. Yeah.
Now I know about the business. It's the same person. I know what they do. I know who they're targeting. You don't have to repeat yourself once you teach it. So you don't have to go in and show them how to wash their hands over and over.
Yeah.
They'll learn.
Yeah.
And so when you do that on a large scale, is good and bad, because you can teach it how to describe your business, how to write things, which then feeds into its learning, which then feeds into the big pool, and everybody's doing it, so it's maturing very quickly. And so that's the good and the bad. It can mature and be a serial killer, or it can mature and be a whatever, non-serial killer. Right? So it's like we're just starting to fork.
Yeah.
And when we start to fork, it's going to go one or two ways.
Yeah.
And you just have to be very aware that if we're writing content, it could go in a way that we don't want it to, and it could say things we don't want it to say.
You don't want it to say, yeah.
And if a user sees that, whether it's a specific swear word or something on your page that you don't want there, or it hallucinates, it basically makes things up.
Yeah.
Then that's a problem. Not only from an SEO standpoint, but from a branding standpoint. So that all feeds into the business as a whole. So AI, good for the most part.
But you got to check
Still needs oversight. You can't let a kid go cook dinner.
That's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have to have oversight.
Wow. A lot of good tips. This has been super helpful for me. I've got a lot of actionable good tips for this. So thank you for taking the time. This is awesome. Is there any specific, suggestion or resource that you would send anybody to? For me, one that comes to mind that I like using quite frequently is actually a site called Answer the Public.
Yes.
I love that site. You can go in there. You can basically what it's going to do is it's going to generate questions based on your topic that people are searching. So I love that. It's a free tool.
Yep.
I think there's a paid one, but is there anything like that you kind of suggest people to check out?
Yeah, like Uber Suggest. That was a big tool.
Okay.
You can download things like Screaming Frog, which is a spider. It crawls your website. You get 500 URLs with the free version, which for small bit, that's usually enough.
Yeah.
And it'll come back and say, hey, you didn't do this. The image on this page doesn't have any alt text, or it doesn't have.
It'll basically give you a to-do list.
Yeah, it's like an audit of your site, a health score of your site, and it'll tell you all the things that
we'll link that in
the
description. Yeah.
Yep. Outside of like SEMrush, I use a lot.
Which does that have a free or?
I think it does. I think it has a free. I don't know.
Up to like a certain amount or something.
Yeah, I think it'll give you, when you're doing like competitive research or keyword research, it'll give you like the top 10, I think, and then it blurs out the rest.
Okay.
Which for some, that may be all they need. But yeah, it's anything that you can get data from, information from. There's a call tracking tool, which I love, called CallRail.
CallRail.
Yep. They can tell you, hey, this came from Google, this sale came from Google, and here's the transcript, which is an easy way you don't have to answer the phone, you don't have to do anything. But there's a bunch of different tools. I'd be very careful with the tools you use because some of them are a little shady.
Sure.
So again, anything you do, take it with a grain of salt, and look at your users and say, hey, my user's not really talking like that, or there's no way that 50,000 people search for that thing.
Yeah.
Make sure Google Analytics, make sure that's on your site. If you're using WordPress, I love Analytics WP. It's a very simple, basic first-party cookie, so it doesn't get blocked.
Good. Yeah. Good.
That's a big thing. So if you do lose a lot of traffic, there could be, especially with GDPR, make sure that you're not actually losing traffic, but Google's just filtering it out. And you can do that with Analytics WP, or you can go into Google Search Console and look at that and say, okay, yeah, my traffic is pretty consistent.
Gotcha.
It must be Google Analytics is blocking some of it or filtering it out.
Gotcha.
For privacy or whatever.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link all that in the description for people. So anybody watching and listening, if you all have questions, if there's something that we went into that you need to learn more about, we'd be happy to pick that up and dive into it a little bit more. I mean, there's always going to be more questions, right?
Of course.
And so we need to know how can we best help, especially for those of you in the design creative industry where you're not really thinking too much about SEO, because I'm not. So like, we don't know until kind of an afterthought, and then we have to go back and build it. So let us know your questions down in the comments. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out when you do that. I really appreciate that. And we will see you in the next one. Bye.